Hello and welcome to the Auto Guide Show. This week, Kyle drives something I can't wait to test myself. I drive one of the most important potential debuts of the new year, and we have a comedian on that makes jokes about cars. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. Okay, so to kick things off, we will talk about a car that should have been driven in the summer and has been delayed a couple times. And it might not be the most important car on the general vehicle landscape, but for Dodge and Stellantis, it's a pretty big deal, and that's the new Charger. So specifically the Charger Daytona, as Daytona signifies electric only, and some point next year, it's supposed to be like a year later, but I think it'll come sooner than later. There'll also be the Daytona 6-packs, which are the gas versions. And the way things went at Stellantis over this last week, don't be surprised when the Charger Hemi shows back up, because apparently the guy who didn't want the Hemi has just been ousted. And basically people at Dodge from the top up are saying, like, we're going to change things. So I'm sure they never threw away the tooling. And it's so funny because I think I've talked about this a couple of times, how when they dismantled the Charger Challenger tooling here in Canada, someone I know has told me, like, they were very careful how they dismantled it. So
I
ready
mean,
to go?
I don't know how the basic Hemi design is like 20 years old now, so I'm not sure how much longer it could have passed emissions. But either way, that's not the point. The point is, what did you drive? Tell us all about it.
Yeah. Well, you could always just make a new Hemi. So anyway, I drove the Charger Daytona, like I said, the EV. It's going to start with the RT and the Scat Pack. So that's sort of the entry and the mid, although right now it's the entry and the high, because apparently a Banshee should come down the road, which is going to be the crazy performance version, like 800 horsepower or something. But they didn't mention anything about it, but they did mention the 6-packs during this presentation. So who knows? But as they are, they're still pretty quick. I mean, for launch, they have like all the packages added, so it's a little confusing. But basically, the RT has 456 horsepower, but if you get the stage 1, it can get 40 more horsepower out of the power shot, which is like a button on the steering wheel that, like all EVs have, where it lets the battery push out electricity way faster than it should for a bit before it overheats. And then the Scat Pack is 630 horsepower, but again, 40 horsepower on stage 2, and it's 670. So they're both all-wheel drive. They're both massive. So these are only the 2-doors. That's all they have at launch, and the 4-door will come, and then the 6-cylinder will come. And it's bigger than the Challenger. It's bigger than the Charger in every dimension. It's taller, it's wider, and it's longer. It's 2 inches wider than the wide bodies, which were wide. And when you look at it head on, it is wide. That's because, like I said, the Scat Pack comes fully loaded to start. So it has the Track Pack, which has 305 front tires and 325 rear tires. Which, as Dodge says, it's the biggest rear tire they've put on a, how did they mention? Muscle car, I think, or something? Because the Viper had 345s. Yeah. Instead of 345s at one point. It might even have had bigger. I don't think it ever went higher than that. But it's funny because the car's so big, these 20-inch wheels with a decent amount of sidewall and super wide look a little small in some angles.
They do, yeah.
Because the car's just so massive. The cool thing that I learned there is the Coupe and the 4-door basically have the same cabin. It's just a matter of where the door, like how many doors and where the doors and the pillars are. So the Coupe, like, I'm 6 feet tall and I sit in the back seat, and especially with the glass roof, I got like headroom to spare and I got legroom to spare, and the cushion's not too low. I mean, it's a little dark because there's this tiny little window because the roof's curling down, but in the 4-door you have more windows. So I mean, a big car, that makes sense. And it's a lift back, so it's a 2-door hatchback, I guess, technically, like the old GTA. And it's a very long cargo area, but pretty shallow, because I think that's where the majority of the battery is. So again, on the 6-packs, it'll be interesting to see if they have a bigger cargo area.
Okay.
Because you won't need that much back there. There's probably a motor in there somewhere too for the rear. But anyway, how does it drive? It's interesting. I mean, Dodge calls it the first electric muscle car, and it's a muscle car that just happens to be electric and this and that. And I get it. They have the drive mode so it can drift and do donuts. Like there's actual donut mode where you just spin around in a circle. And it can do burnouts where it like basically just puts all the power to the rear wheels. If you has the drive modes, so interesting thing is each drive mode actually isn't just a difference in power, which you don't know what they are, but it's different in how they put it down. So if you are in sport, it's hit the accelerator and the torque goes down and off you rip. And if you put it in drag, it puts all the power down immediately, and you can roast the front tires as you're accelerating. There's just that much power in this thing. I'm talking the Scat Pack, of course.
Yeah,
yeah. And the rear tires hook up, and they say 0 to 60 and I think 3.3, which is not crazy fast compared to some EVs.
What every EV does now is like low to mid threes.
Yeah, but I mean, if you for the price, like a Scat Pack 73 US, first off, there's no electric coupes. There's no electric giant coupes. There's like it's a very niche car.
Yeah.
Some people are saying, "Oh, you compare it to the Model 3." And I'm like, no, like the Model S, if anything, because it's bigger than the Model S, but it's not the same sort of idea, and it's way cheaper. So I'm saying like anything that's near its size, Lucid, Model S, Taycan, like they're all crazy expensive. So it's an American car. It's like a big, better, affordable car, and it does this like a quarter mile in 11 something, but you feel it. Like you said, everything's that fast and you feel it. But if you put it in track mode, it's very interesting because the power is not that on-off switch of EVs. They've really made it more linear so you can like roll onto the accelerator out of corners and stuff, and not because a lot of EVs you have to modulate it so carefully, because as soon as if you get too much power, it's just gonna shoot you straight off the track in a world of understeer. But it drives pretty well for a 5,800-pound vehicle, which is heavy. I'm not gonna lie, but for its size and being an EV, that's not terrible. Like
No.
that's how much the VinFast weighs. And now it's heavy for its category, but like an EQE AMG is heavier. Like
the M5 weighs slightly less, but it's a plug-in hybrid. But
yeah. So I don't know if it's a muscle car, and I say that in my review. Like they haven't convinced me, and the reason being is the way the power goes down. Is it muscle car? Like it does explode in a sensation of forward momentum, but like a muscle car, you just had that. It exploded with sound and fury and vibrations and the tires breaking loose, and it doesn't really do that. And they have the Fratsonic exhaust sound maker thing that's basically a giant speaker airbox underneath the car, and the airbox is there to try to give some vibration. And you can't adjust how it sounds, but you can adjust its volume levels basically depending on your drive mode. So in drag it's louder than a Scat Pack, or sorry, drag it's louder than a Red Eye Hellcat, and it's very loud. So it's like not for street, and then sport's pretty loud and tracks somewhere in between. But if you hear it start up close, it totally sounds like a big kind of muffled speaker, sort of like when you're overpowering a Bluetooth speaker outside somewhere. And you don't feel anything, and you're kind of like, ugh. And if you're inside the car, it makes convincing noise to match with what you're driving, but it doesn't sound like a V8, which they said they weren't trying to do, but it doesn't sound like anything. But when you're outside of the car, if across the street or drives by like a parking lot or like on a track, it sounds actually not bad. So it's like the first like 10-foot muscle car where it sounds great from 10 feet, but not any closer.
I wonder if you keep saying that it doesn't quite convince you as a muscle car. I wonder if maybe the all-wheel drive also is a major part of that, right? Like that really alters how it delivers power. Maybe a rear drive single motor one, if that comes down the line, makes more sense.
Yeah, and I'm curious for the 6-pack. I'm assuming there'll be a rear drive and all-wheel drive potentially, but maybe just rear. But you can put it in just rear drive in those like burnout and drift modes and stuff.
Yeah,
you're right. It's not the same, but it's just I don't know. It looks really cool inside for having lower materials. They've done a good job trying to make it look more upscale. So basically, like it's a good car. It's actually a really good car. It's a really good EV, and being a giant coupe that seats people, like it's one of one basically. And we were joking, like if they made it a 4-door and changed the front clip, this would have been the perfect Chrysler 300 rebirth, to go electric, because it drives like a nice big American car that has tons of power. And that was always what I loved about the 300. It was like the Charger hard in a classier vehicle.
How did the Dodge people feel about that?
I didn't say that to them. Although, now they'll hear it. But again, this was sort of designed and made and whatnot, sort of in the old Stellantis, I guess we can almost call it now. So it's not going to go anywhere, but I'm sure they always do too. Like the six packs are going to outsell it. But it's cool that a car like this can do both. And I mean, on the outside, it has really cool style. It looks like a 68 Charger. It drives so well on the highway. My drive partner and I couldn't believe like how planted and straight and smooth it felt, especially with the big tires and how big the car is. Like, again, sort of why I was alluding to the 300. Like it's a great cruiser. And then in the twisties, we were on a road that was way too small for the size of this car, but it held its own too. Again, we have the track pack with the 16-inch front rotors clamped down by 4 piston Brembos, so that helps always.
Yeah,
I don't know what those are going to cost to replace, but
it's well, I'm fascinated. We should probably move on to the other things for this week, but like this is the point: is this obviously, demands a lot of discussion because it is so unique in the market and so important for Dodge. And I really wonder how we can possibly put it up against anything next year, because I think that would be part of the fun. Is for this price, like what else can you get? What else is out there?
Yeah, and someone in the comments actually mentioned, like price wise, you're up around Tesla Model 3 Performance and Ioniq 5N, and it's like they're way better performers. And I agree, and you're right, but this is way bigger and sort of a different thing. And I said one car is as much as it's not the same that it could be compared against is the Mustang Mach-E, because they both are these electric muscle cars, even though they're completely different takes on it.
Well, I was going to say, like, what would be very fascinating is sticking this up against a Mustang GT or whatever ICE Mustang gets closest to this in price. I imagine this falls somewhere between Dark Horse and GT. But that's the thing is, like,
this is probably more than a Dark Horse.
Oh, because it's 73. You said US.
Yeah.
Okay, US, so yeah, that's pretty much Dark Horse. Okay.
But I mean, it has more power and it'll beat it to 60. I don't know what a quarter mile, but
I'm just curious. So yeah, so interesting.
Yeah. So, and then when the 2-door 6-pack comes out, then definitely gets the Mustang, because now you have a coupe versus coupe, and
the M4, because it's basically the same layout.
And they told us, and again, I don't know. I think when the gas comes out, like, all right, we have to move on. But I think when the gas comes out, these will slowly disappear in the background. But I think the first batch will sell, like anything new and shiny. People like you'll have your buyers, but you won't get a sustained conquest of buyers into this thing, I don't think. But
I think the people who want like straight line speed will end up with this, because the gas can't compete.
And it's weird. The 6-pack, they said the 4-door is going to get the low power, like 420 or whatever it is, and the 2-door is going to get the 540 or 550.
Okay.
And I'm sure that'll change, because I mean, like, I want a 4-door with a 550. Like that, it's all-wheel drive. Like that's my ultimate next car.
That's the Mike special. That's
exactly. Yeah. It's going up against the Blackwing. See if it does better. So anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Talked way too long about that. Kyle, you went and drove, as I said in the intro, something that I really wanted to drive, but I couldn't make this event because we almost bought a Volkswagen Taos, except for that dual clutch, and for 2025, it's gone.
Yes. It's funny, in the intro you said that and I was like, wait, what did I drive? And I mean, like, that's actually kind of the Taos's curse, is it kind of gets overlooked a lot, but it's really good in every way. It doesn't do anything too poorly. We did that mega comparison earlier this year and it finished 4th, which was very respectable. And it's just that it scored well everywhere. And when we talked about which one we'd actually probably want to take home, this was the one that we regularly mentioned. But like you said, that dual clutch was just kind of ruined the experience, because the Taos has a very grown-up feel, which is pretty rare in the class. But that
space.
Yeah, it's the nicest back row out of anything. And that dual clutch was just jerky and stop and go traffic on the highway. This fixes it, although I have to point out, we always focus on that DSG because in Canada, the 4Motion model outsells the front drive, something like 97-1. Uh, or 97-3. There we go. But in the US, the front drive model is about 40% of sales or 45, and that already had the 8-speed automatic.
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually already had the proper transmission in the Taos, but now for 25, all of them get the 8-speed auto. They get some tweaked looks, which I'm not entirely sure of. It works in person. I like the back end restyle because the full width tail lights, like, it looks cool, but the front end is just a little fussy. The old one was a little boring. If I want to be mean, it felt a little boring.
Right.
But the nice thing about it was that it was like pretty inoffensive and pretty handsome, and it ages pretty well. But this one looks a little more modern. It looks more like the ID family and the new Tiguan, but it's fussy. Like especially that contrasting trim in the lower bumper, that on certain colors really stands out. This one that I got for photos, it blends in a little more.
That color that everybody seems to be making their cars these days.
Yeah.
The bluey, steely gray, whatever.
Yeah. The new green is great.
So to your styling thing, yeah, like we saw this a while ago when it was debuted, and it's clearly their new design language. Like I said, the ID4, and it has Atlas in it, and then the Tiguan's more of a baby Atlas. It's just sort of the way they're going. But yeah, dumping the dual clutch for this, I think, is a big deal because that 8-speed it's not the same, but in the Atlas and the old Tiguan was good. So
yeah.
So I mean, this is a refresh though, right? Like this isn't like the Tiguan that's all new.
It's just a refresh. The interior has some slight tweaks because now the touchscreen is like a lot of cars. It's semi-floating, so it stands proud of the dashboard. It's 8 inches on every trim now because before the base model was 6.5. Still a digital instrument cluster. There's a new dark blue leather interior that looks really nice, except it's too dark in my mind, so it's barely blue. And I mean, it just does... like I said before, it does everything pretty well. I wish there was a power tailgate. That's one thing that it lacks that I think is a bit odd. But the other good news that I will say about the Taos is that price has barely changed. So it gets all these improvements, and the base model's up $1,000, but then the volume sellers are actually down a couple $100. So like, that seems like a win. So yeah, this is a really good vehicle, and if you're in the market for it, I would highly recommend checking it out. I just wish that I guess it's one continued weakness is that it doesn't have a hybrid, but currently the only thing that really does in this class is the Corolla Cross.
Yeah, and with that screen, like 1.5 inches can make all the difference. And we didn't really mention it has a little more power. Not the 184 felt weak, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. It has 10% more power. So it's now at 174. Torque is unchanged. Fuel economy is slightly up. I want to say it's the 4Motion that gains an additional mile per gallon overall. I mean, like you said, it never felt tardy, even though it was one of the lowest on paper figures in the class, because it's a turbo engine and it had a lot of torque low down. Yeah. So it's fine.
And bring back buttons, please, Volkswagen.
Yeah. So the climate controls are now the... Yeah.
We don't have... Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So this was actually technically late the week before, but it happened over the weekend, so it didn't make our podcast. But I got to drive the Infiniti QX60, which was heavily... It was heavily updated for not really being updated. So
yes.
So two big changes for this year is it gained a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, and it got rid of the old 3.5 V6 that was like the Volkswagen Infiniti staple since 2002, I think. It was like in everything. So it was ditched, and this new engine is the VC turbo, variable compression.
Yeah.
So it's the one that was in the Ultima for a while, but in the Ultima it's only front-wheel drive. Here it finally gets to join all-wheel drive. The improvement
is... So it's in the QX50 too, right? And the QX55.
Is that the 2-liter? Is it the VC, the variable compression?
Yeah.
Okay. So here it makes like 269 horsepower, which is like what the Atlas makes with its 2-liter turbo. So
yeah,
that's decent. The downside is it needs premium, And there's 4-cylinder turbos out there that make more power that don't require premium. Some are bigger, like let's say the Ascent makes like a
The Explorer.
yeah, like they're 2.4, 2.3, but still, it's if you need
Although
premium, like should be making like 290, I think. But
I guess it's because this is a premium product. Like Lexus does
it's
the
not
same
even.
thing, right? The Lexus, the RX and the NX have a 2-liter turbo that are premium, but then you can get the 2-liter turbo in 2.4, and the Highlander, it's like regular. So
It's not even like premium recommended, and you'll lose some power, which is interesting. But anyway, I've been a fan of putting turbos in these. I know people are like too big for its engine and this and that. It's like it's fine. We were just over-engineering vehicles for so long because like there's a arms race and power and stuff. But this makes more torque than the V6 and less horsepower. Way less horsepower than what it gains in torque. But behind the wheel, it's different, and that's sort of how I concluded the whole summary. Is it's not better, it's not worse. I mean, it's better and worse in different things. So it's a little better on gas, and when you're in the right gear and rolling on it, having that turbo torque, great. Like highway passing's much improved, but around the city, even though it's a regular 8-speed, it's very hesitant to change gears. Sorry, it hesitates when changing gears. Like there's this big gap I feel between changing gears, and the engine wants to be in a very certain power band, which is weird because it's supposed to be variable compression, so you'd expect it to be more flexible. But it had like, if you caught it out, you'd be like, oh, okay, now we go. And sometimes you would want it. Yeah, I know it's in the Murano that you just drove, so we'll hear about that next week. And
yes,
I assume it's one day going to make its way into the Pathfinder. No confirmation or even rumors on that, but it just makes sense. I mean, what has that 3.5 left in a front-wheel drive layout? The Pathfinder. So I mean, it sells well, but
yeah,
I can't imagine it lasts there much longer. So yeah, it's just a different drive experience. It feels more sophisticated because it is quieter and smoother.
Okay, well that's good.
The sound is probably worse, but that's just a me thing where like V6s sound better.
And like who? No offense to Infiniti, but like who's buying a QX60 because of engine sound?
Yeah.
Like it.
So anyway, to wrap it up, the other change is this specific vehicle I have is called the Black Package. So in Canada, it's just called the Black Package, but in the US, you buy the Lux, which is there's 4 models, so that's the second lowest, and then it adds this. And this is but my other conclusion is this package is like perfect for the vehicle. It's a sweet spot because price-wise, this puts it right on top of a TX 350 all-wheel drive luxury and an RDX or MDX A-Spec. So they're both using their smaller engines. So MDX is basically using what this used to have, like a 3.5 V6 that makes very similar power to their old engine.
Yeah.
And the TX has the 2.4 turbo that we talked about that has more power and more torque, but it's also a bigger, heavier SUV. And the equipment you get in here is equal, at least, or better. And as we compared them last year, we liked how this drove better. So this is the one to get, because if you move up to the high end, then you're fighting against Type S's and the hybrids, and it's harder to. You're kind of getting out premiumed and luxury at that point.
Yeah, I just want to point out this is how quick the year has gone. We did that this year.
Oh yeah, that's right. Last spring.
But yeah, that was kind of be what I was going to mention is, this, to all of our surprise, this won against the TX and the MDX, because they were all so much more expensive because you can get bigger, more powerful engines, and this kind of this tops out because of the V6, and now it's the 4-cylinder. And my thinking is just like, I wonder if Infiniti will find a bigger engine to stick in this for an upsell, because it makes sense. I know you just said we were in an arms race, and that doesn't help anything by being like, now we have a higher power engine for our QX60, but I wonder if it would, only because it sees competitors doing it, and maybe it makes sense. Like a 350-ish horsepower, but I don't know what they have even available to do that.
It'd have to be, I would think that that's just make some sort of hybrid that they then could have put in the Murano and the Pathfinder, and, volume sell it, but we'll see. Moving on to something neither of us, well, we didn't drive it now. You drove it, I think, before.
I've driven this substantially. Yeah.
So our content director, I think is this title.
Yes.
Sorry, Greg. I don't know what your title is, Greg, but he drove the Trail Hunter, which is arguably one of the coolest looking trucks on the road right now, with its
Coolest
mix
sounding
of
too.
modern looks and throwback looks kind of blended together in like a Tonka truck type thing. Like when you see these just parked in a driveway, it looks like someone just climbed a mountain, which you actually did in one.
I literally did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, he likes it because some of these trucks, it's way too much and too much money. I'm looking at you, Raptor R. But this, it's a lot of money, but it's stuff that
It's a
could be
lot of money.
useful for people who are doing this. Like it's not one of those ones where it has all this crazy equipment, but it's like, but no one's gonna take it off road because it sits too low, or they're too worried about damaging this, or it's 6 figures. So I'm sure you still want to modify this, but it's at least closer to ready to go.
Yeah, no, it's very good. It's a lot of fun. I liked it when we spent like a week with it out in BC this summer. I really appreciate an onboard um, tire inflator. That's incredible. That's so helpful, and it's so quick. The snorkel is great. I'm sure, I'm sure Greg had a lot of fun with that too because it sounds hilarious. You get piped. I say piped in, but like it's authentic. It's coming from the snorkel. But it sounds like the GR Corolla. Like it gives you that kind of like fun, want to go adventure kind of feel.
Yeah.
It is really expensive in Canada. In the US, the Trailhunter and the TRD Pro are pretty similar on price. They might even be the same if I'm remembering right. Whereas in Canada, Trailhunter is something like $8,000 more than a TRD Pro.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it'll be the specific model. I'd love it to be, but we will be having a Tacoma Gladiator comparison sometime next year. I'd love to compare this to the Hummer, just in like an off-road battle. But even though
I assume the
price is so
Hummer would.
different.
I assume the Hummer would decimate it as long as it's a big enough trail for it to fit.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll hopefully revisit this or the TRD Pro or something.
Mhm.
So moving on to something you drove, part of your month of BMW. You drove, even though this was a
Yeah,
long time ago.
this was a long time ago, but yeah, I'm currently in my BMW month. Yeah, the 2025 M4 Competition X Drive Cabriolet or convertible, depending on which market you're
Country
in.
you're in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the unless you go with the CS, which is a kind of limited availability coupe. This is the top of the M4 lineup for 25 because there was a light facelift. There's new LED signatures in the headlights. Really cool kind of wing-like LED taillights. Because I think did you have the 4 Series
I
coupe
had the
earlier this summer?
430. No, I had the 430 Cabriolet in the spring. I want to say it was quite a while. It was nice enough to have the top down, but also rained on me.
I thought you got a 440i at some point this year. It was like a limited Canadian thing.
Oh yes, the coupe. Yes, with
Yeah,
the that steel gray blue sky color that everybody
there we
uses.
go.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, this
And
is
yeah.
like updated and I don't know, it's funny, right? Like give it a few years and sure enough, that grill doesn't really shock anymore. It's still not pretty, but I don't know, in a dark green like this, yeah. The wheels are silver, which is nice. I really appreciate not having black wheels. So it looked good. It has a light cabin too, like a cream leather interior. And it's because it's the convertible, whoever spec'd it very wisely did not put those super aggressive seats in it, just the regular sports seats. And so this is going to sound weird. I apologize in advance, maybe to BMW, maybe to Nissan, maybe to both. This is basically for GTR people who grew up. Because it's all-wheel drive. It's a turbo 6-cylinder. It's quick, but it's a drop top. But it performs like a GTR would, right? Like it's 523 horsepower now, 0 to 60
Not
in
as
three
much
and a
as a
half
Ram.
seconds. Yeah, not as much as the Ram with the same basic engine layout. It's it's very quick. It's very composed. It's too heavy to be like a proper sports car. But the rear seats are actually not bad for adults. They're not great, but
Yeah.
they're probably as good as the M8, even though the M8 is bigger externally. It's just a very good all-round car if you want to fit 4 people in a convertible. And there's really not that much left on the market that does that anymore.
Yeah, when I had the 435, I found the seats. But honestly, I mean, this isn't the first time for sure. But when I see this car and like reading your review and hearing about it, I just picture the Fonz sitting behind the wheel with a life jacket on, driving it over a ramp over a shark. Because if you went back to like the M3 OGs, like not even I'm talking the 80s, 90s, like what the M3 stood for, let's say late 90s through basically early 2010s, like it's almost become a character of itself. Like it's like I said, it's so powerful. It's got all-wheel drive now to make it easy to drive. You can take the top off, and it weighs like as much as an SUV. Like, I mean, the M5 is no better, but
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and like we've all said it. But at the same time, like if I subscribe to the idea that cars evolve with their buyers, then like I don't know, I guess this makes sense. And when the M3 started, it was the smallest BMW you could get, but now there's the 2 Series in Europe, there's the 1 Series, and
yeah,
so the M2 in particular, I guess,
that's
has
heavy
sort
too.
of taken the idea, but it's also really heavy. I don't know. It's
Yeah, cars be
yeah.
heavy today.
Yeah, cars are giant and heavy.
So finishing up our news for this
Except
week, it's something we haven't driven because no one has, but I had to put this in because we're both Gran Turismo kids, grew up on the game, and the R5 Turbo is a car we knew about for rallying and whatnot, but it was just fun to drive in the game. So Renault's resurrecting it, and they nailed the styling. It looks like an R5 with the subcompact sort of style with the way pushed out fenders. It's got a little
freaking cool.
yeah, it's got a little modern EV look to it, and that's because it is an EV. So it's not going to have a 200 horsepower engine in the rear. Instead, it's going to have 500 horsepower to all 4 wheels. So, so
It's
they
rear
did resurrect
drive.
the. Is it? I thought it said it was all-wheel drive. It's 500 to the rear wheels.
It's rear wheel drive.
Oh wow. Okay, so it was 160 in the road car and 2 something in the rally car. And this one's going to be 500. Okay, so yeah, and it's I think it is going to go on sale, right?
Yeah, like that's the impression
They
because
haven't said it, but they have it already, right? So,
yeah, because there's the regular I don't know if it's called the 5, like I don't keep
yeah,
up to date
they
with the
have the
Europe.
Renault
They
5
have the regular one,
with
right? Like the
with the
EV. Then
retro styling and yeah.
there's an Alpine version as well that's coming. So like we're just getting all these back, and I'm here for it. It looks awesome. I think the Europeans, like Renault and Opel, are doing really good stuff with bringing back nameplates but modernizing them and making them EV in a way that honors the original cars. I mean, like this is the same idea as back then. It's just taking modern tech, and 500 horsepower sounds like a blast.
So yeah, I misread it. You're right. I knew it was dual motor, but I didn't realize it's 2 motors on the rear axle, one for each wheel. So
Which is
yeah,
probably a first. I don't think anyone has done that, a
just
dual
to the rear.
motor rear drive.
So to your point, it's true. Like they keep bringing back because they have all these sort of cool one-off cars because of motorsports and the way the rules were. Where the American cars, it's like they were always Corvettes or Mustangs or so.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
they've had these one-offs. Like somehow bring back a Fiero, but Pontiac doesn't exist. So I mean, an electric Fiero would be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, and same in Japan. I mean, they didn't really have the real serious sports cars till the 80s, so they don't like they had some cool sporty cars like the Toyota 2000 GT, but
Yeah, but not the same as yeah, I see what you mean.
the
Yeah.
closest is the Z, which we've already got a retro Z on the market. So,
It's true.
all right, so we will take a quick break, and when we come back, my Genesis is back. So um,
It
we're going
returns.
to returns for more updates. So the first update will happen, and after that, Colin will be back with the question of the week. Then we'll take another break, and we have a guest on who is hilarious. You're listening to the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. It's time to move on to the upgrades again, and those that followed along with the series will maybe remember in the summer I took the Genesis Coupe to the track after a bunch of upgrades were done and commented on how its weakest spot was the brakes. There's nothing really wrong, they're good brakes, but when you're lapping consistently and with the heat cycles and the stopping forces, they just aren't cut out for that. I don't have the upgraded brakes that could have come on the Genesis Coupe, so I just have the very basic stock ones. So I'm getting a set from PowerStop that will replace all 4 rotors and all the pads. It's an upgrade kit without actually increasing the size and works with the stock calipers. So what comes in the PowerStop kit for the Genesis Coupe? Well, to start, you get these nice meaty front rotors that are cross-drilled and vented, and the rear rotors are just cross-drilled. Remember, I don't have the upgraded big brake package that could have been had on the Genesis Coupe, so I'm replacing the smaller stock pieces with upgraded parts. As far as the pads go, well, it is the PowerStop Evolution Sport, and these are carbon fiber ceramic pads, and it comes with all the kit you need here to be installed. So as you can see, the brakes aren't terrible. They're not gouged or scored or anything. They're just sort of a regular old disc in the front, and it's the same story in the back. They're actually pretty new, as I just got them a couple years ago, but I'm ready for an upgrade with a set that's better suited to handle the heat if I want to do some autocross or lapping days again this summer. So I've been driving around for a bit now with the new brakes, and I wasn't really expecting a huge change in just regular driving with these power stops, but I will say it's taken me a while to get used to the initial bite. When I first depressed the brake pedal, there used to be sort of a bit of a squish and a delay, and it just kind of gradually came on. Now the brakes grab. There's so much quicker and reassuring when I step on the pedal. If my actual braking distance are shorter, I can't really tell, and I can't really test right now because it's really cold out, snow's about to fall, and to get the summer tires off. But I do plan to take them back to the track in the spring, and then I can compare sort of my driving feel as well as lap times compared to pre-brakes. That's where I think they're really going to shine, because having the cross-drilled and the slotted, it should expel heat quicker. But like I said, on the road, there's already so much more initial bite and reassurance, and it's not a case of used up brakes being replaced by new brakes, because the set I had on, as I've said before, were only about a year and a half old, and maybe had 5,000 miles on them. So yeah, there is a noticeable difference right away. So I can give them a little bit of a test of performance. So let's do a panic brake from, say, 60 miles an hour. Ready, and go. Like, that stopped so fast, so linear. There was no noise, no vibration, no pulling, just stopped. And again, it's early having these brakes, but that's something I've noticed too, is there's no real noise, grinding, squeaking or anything. Some high performance brakes squeak, and I mean, they're designed to do that. They're way more high performance than what I have. But for my purposes, this is a great combination of still sounding and feeling like an OEM brake while performing better. So I can't really properly test these out till spring when it's not so cold and the roads are a little cleaner, but my initial impressions of the PowerStop brakes they're good quality, and for the price, I think they're great value. So far, I'm quite happy. I have brakes, and they're awesome. Next two upgrades aren't performance related whatsoever, but one is crucial and one is just because it looks cool. Moving on, the question of the week, our discussion of the week.
Yes.
What old car could be sold new right now with minimal changes and still be competitive? We've had similar questions to this, but just the landscape with certain president that's coming in, reluctance to EVs being adopted as fast as people thought, not just in North America, but worldwide. My easy vote is the Volt. It should have never been killed in the first place for the Bolt, and GM could just put in a modern infotainment system and tweak the styling and put like the 1, 2, 3 cylinder turbo as your generator engine with even more battery capacity. And yeah, like plug-in hybrids, I believe, are the future. And that was such a great take on it.
Okay, that was when I knew that this was going to be the discussion of the week. My question was, what do we mean by old?
I mean, something that's not made anymore. Like, it could have been even just a couple years old, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Renault R5 Turbo. That needs some tweaks. Yeah, like, I mean, well, while you're thinking, I can keep talking about it, but yeah, like the 1.4 non-turbo and the second gen with the battery and whatnot, like it made like good power. Like I think it was close to 200, and it got good range. And I drove it and I really liked it. And you could that 1.2 turbo that's in the Chevy and Buick products, the little SUVs, put that in there. It'll take up roughly the same space. Battery and motor technology have improved, so I bet you get even more range out of similar power. And yeah, be a good little car.
Yeah. So it feels like cheating to say this, but the Challenger Charger.
The one that just got dropped. Yeah,
But I mean, all those
you're right.
needed was a really substantial interior update and a new engine, and they would have kept selling. I mean, that thing, I think right up to the end, it was making sales records each year, right? It was like, oh, we sold more of them. And it's like, that car is 15 years old. Like, who cares? So that would be one. And then my wild swing of a suggestion, the mid 90s Camry. All it needs
Like
is
all its square glory and everything coming right back.
the softened one, with the roundish
Oh
headlights,
yes,
the mid
my
90s. That one.
yes. My friend had a brand new '96 in. You'll never believe this. Beige.
Beige. Yep, because that's all I picture. I only picture that one in beige. No, that thing is indestructible. So put a modern Toyota hybrid power plant in it, get some new infotainment, or I guess infotainment period, and you're good. You're good. That thing will last millions of miles.
We talked about this last week, but the Juke too, because how it was this weird style creator. I mean, just I know there's still one in Europe. Bring it back. I mean, the kick, so it's kind of
It's
pointless
so
now,
good
but
looking in Europe too now. Like the current Juke and the current Toyota CHR, both of them look excellent, and Europe gets them and we don't.
I'm sure there's people way smarter than us making these decisions and business cases, but I feel like there's a giant gap for Americans never got this, but a Caravan Canada Value Package, the CVP, where you got hubcaps and no tint and everything. It just took 7 passengers and was cheap.
Yep.
And
they're
bring that back.
They're still all over our roads for like businesses, right? Because
they're trying it with the Pacifica. They've made a stripped out Pacifica because I think Chrysler realized that. Anyway, we will take another break on the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. Kyle won't be here because we had recorded this previously and he was in Tennessee, but he will be back at the end of the show to talk about what's ahead. Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Okay, welcome back. And this week we have an extra special guest. Two actually, because Kyle's somewhere driving something. So he couldn't join us, but we have Colum Wood, and I'll let him take it away.
So I will introduce Abbas. So this is Abbas Wahab. He's a comedian amongst other talents. And I guess I feel like, I mean, obviously I didn't find you. You found yourself. You've been making quite a scene lately, but I stumbled across some of your comedy, I think first on Instagram, and I noticed what I loved, because I sort of work in a little bit of automotive marketing, is that you do all these automotive marketing videos. And I saw there was like a BMW one, and I thought it was awesome, and I was laughing my ass off. And then I saw most recently I was like, we should have you on. And I just toyed with it. I was like, I probably won't come on the podcast. And then I saw the Jaguar one that you just did. And I was like, I died laughing. And so yeah. And then it sounds like you've been a busy man. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and what maybe what you're doing in comedy right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, first of all, Colum and Mike. But yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian / actor. I used to be an automotive engineer back in the day in my past life. I've always loved cars. And in this new world of comedy and content creation, the easiest way to get asses in seats, butts in seats, whatever you want to say, I don't know what your swearing thing is on this.
We're
but
all right.
The easiest way to get people there is through content. So you make all these kind of funny videos online, which end up act as commercials for your brand of humor, we'll say. And all in an effort to get people to come to the live stand-up comedy shows. Now, I've done 1,000 versions, just been throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks. But I've kind of converged on car stuff just because I have real interest in it. And a lot of times online, you just make something and it hits and you kind of stay in that lane and it just keeps working. So I used to do something called job interviews, which are kind of like satire. It'd be like Tim Horton's job interview, and then it'd be like a joke job interview, right? It's like, I just moved to Canada 2 days ago. They're like, 2 days ago? Why didn't you come yesterday? He's like, I was setting up Uber. It's like, oh, of course. So that one went viral. So then I did a bunch of job interviews and I was touring off that. But then it kind of became a little bit of an effort because I had to like research in these companies and whatnot. But then once I got it to cars, it's nice because I've just been a car guy my whole life. I don't really have to research much. I just I have my finger on the pulse, so to speak, just because it's naturally like when I wake up, I go to like Jalopnik, you know what I mean? Like I'm reading car stuff all the time. One sec. Hey, Gunner! Hey! Gunner, come here. Hey, now. Hey, that's it. Come here. That's it. Come here.
Nice.
Come here.
It wouldn't be a work from home podcast without the dogs involved.
Yeah. But yeah, long story short, I started doing car marketing videos, BMW, Mercedes, all these, just kind of, again, just satire, like the idea of who's on the marketing team, what they're saying based on the energy around that specific OEM. And then one day I woke up and I had like 100 DMs from all these people like, Jaguar, did you see that? Did you see that? Oh my God, it's over. Jaguar. So then I went and I watched it and it just blew me away. And I did that. And funny enough, I never did the Jaguar marketing team. I just left. I did a lot and I was doing other stuff. And I'm happy I waited because they kind of served it up on a platter.
They sure did. I noticed you're wearing your Jaguar hat today too there.
Yes,
so
sir.
they just made it so perfect. And your take, I was talking to some folks on like your PR team and just about how your take was hilarious. Like you could have, there's two general ways you could have gone and both would have offended somebody. And this way doesn't offend anybody. It just calls it for what it is. It's just hilarious. And it's good for people who haven't, if you haven't checked out Abbas, I'll promo you. First, go to check out his Instagram, and I'm sure he'd want you to go check out his shows. So,
thank you. Yeah. I mean, I hope.
so, and you were just on tour, right?
Yeah, I just wrapped up a tour. I filmed the final dates were in Toronto at Comedy Bar Danforth over there in the East End. We filmed 2 shows, which I'll put out as a YouTube special in February, March. We'll see once it's edited and all things done. But yeah, now putting together 2025 dates, mostly the US, but always some Canada stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Shout out to my old neighborhood out there. I lived above a Swiss chalet on the Danforth for a little while. My sister's there for years.
And under a bowling alley?
Yeah. I think the chalet is gone, but oh man, every time you step outside your house, it just smelled like roasted
that gravy.
Yeah. I think
it could be worse restaurants.
0 times.
Yeah, it could be worse restaurants. So chalet it's not too bad.
Yeah.
And so this is another funny thing, I guess, that people don't know. So Mike and I were both Canadian. It's funny because our Abbas, if you don't know, so like AutoGuide is we're based in Toronto, but we're a very American focused audience. So we're often like driving cars, US spec, going to US vehicle launches, etc.
Hell yeah, guys, come out to the show.
Yeah. So where you're from Toronto? Are you like Toronto proper or whereabouts?
I grew up, so I'm a Sudanese immigrant. So I came to Canada when I was 6, but I grew up in London, Ontario.
Okay.
So I went grade 1 to 12, London, Ontario. Went to Waterloo for engineering, and then went to America for 3 years to work as an automotive supplier in the good old Detroit automotive sector.
Oh, cool.
And then in that, I started doing open mics at night back in like 2016, and pretty much 2017 came back to Canada and just focus only on comedy.
Wow.
So
So if you're Waterloo engineering, you're obviously also a genius. You get to add that to your like resume.
No, you know what the good thing about Waterloo is that they're so academic focused that they believe in the honor system, which makes it very easy to cheat on tests.
I had some good friends go to the engineering program in Waterloo, and I remember going many a university night hanging out there with them. It was good times.
Yeah. It's hey, I could have done it myself, and I did for a year or two, and then I was like, at that point, I was kind of like halfway, because the immigrant thing is like, oh, become an engineer or doctor, right? So I love cars, so I was like, oh, let me do engineering, but I really wasn't passion wasn't behind it. The car stuff was, but I was always kind of like this comedic guy. And then I was like, oh, I'll make it through the degree, and then I'll make some money, and then I'll be happy, and then blah blah blah. Long story short, now I made it into comedy, and I've somehow resurrected cars back into it. I don't know, by the luck of things, it's worked back out, and I'm not complaining. Knock on wood, you know.
I think it's what you said. It's your passion about it, and that you know it intrinsically. Like that's what struck me, is that like you the marketing interviews, it's so spot on about what is going on in those meetings. It's just like they're, the out of touchness of what's being said, or sometimes it's, that you're calling people out on how they really do understand their market and they know that it's a facade, right? Like,
yeah,
we get to meet people in the industry all the time, and some people, they've drunk the Kool-Aid, they live and die by the brand, but there's some people there who, like, I remember a guy I talked to at I was Lexus or whatever, and he just said, he goes, Lexus makes the best cars in the world. He goes, and I know that because they pay me. And he just straight up, like, he was just so honest. And he said, like, if I worked for Volkswagen next week, like, Volkswagen makes the best cars. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's simple.
So,
but the things we do is hilarious, because those of us this deep in the industry, we have these thoughts all the time. Like, who in that company thought this up, or who got sold on this idea? Because, like, there's this Chevy CarPlay thing that Kyle and I have ranted about many times, and you just know someone got duped in there, and it happens more than I think people think.
What's going on with the Chevy CarPlay?
If you get an EV, you don't get CarPlay. They just cut it. You get Google Assistant, and you get some free data, so you can run all the apps off Google. But
that's backwards, because you think they have a lot more adoption from the younger generations into EV, so that's who really wants CarPlay. So that's a weird move.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've covered it, but yeah,
like the older people only like gasoline, so they're the only ones who get CarPlay. You're like, what? That's odd. But
having reviewed the electric charger this week, that's a very true point. The comments we're getting on the reviews.
Yeah, the old Charger muscle car guys are not fans, I don't imagine.
No.
The commercials look pretty badass though.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
So there's your next piece. You could do something all about the electric muscle cars and how much Jim Bob loves that in
electric
Montana.
muscle cars, an oxymoron of sorts, huh?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And how you said you found this sort of niche with the automotive. I mean, there's so many companies out there, and even when you run out, you have all the defunct companies you could go make fun of as well, like why they went out of business or whatever.
Pontiac. Or...
Yeah.
I do my
Oldsmobile,
Sunfire
Plymouth.
series.
Yeah.
The Aztec. What did the Aztecs predict? Did they predict their downfall?
Is that Mike used to own an Oldsmobile, didn't you, Mike? And you're very proud of it.
They're right here.
Oh, there you go. There's your Oldsmobile.
You can still say Buick. I guess.
Yeah. No, I got my Oldsmobile photos up there, and Saturn. Oh man, so many companies have gone away, and we've talked about it. This is getting a little more serious on the industry, but there's many companies who aren't going to make it through the next decade.
No, I mean Nissan entered the chat.
Yeah.
Your hat entered the chat too.
Yeah, right. They're like Jaguars. You know what? I was like, oh, they're done. But I'm like, let me take one step back and see what they do here. It could be like some master play. 10 years from now, we'll be like, whoa, how did they actually do this? It's crazy because everyone thinks they're counting them out, right? But who knows? Let's see what they do.
our take on it is, it's to the very fashion show thing that you talk about in your joke, is they're going to make this be something that people will just think is cool because they're told it is. And initially, I think they'll sell every single one of these $200,000 EVs to celebrities and wannabes and whatnot. But then the question is, 2-3 years from now, who buys them? Once the fad's over. But we'll see.
No, I agree. Even the Type 00, it just kind of looks like they're buying time. Like it looks like a really good fourth-year design project for automotive, like a good, like an A+, but like it's also like they're buying time. That's because I have a friend who's a general manager at Jaguar Land Rover, and he showed me internal documents. So I'm not going to say any names or anything like that, but he showed me the documents that like head office disseminated among the dealership groups to be like, these are the FAQs you're likely getting from customers. These are how to respond to them. And I remember one of them was like, "Is this your new ad campaign?" It's like, "No, this is a new ad that will tie into our release of the vehicle during Miami Art Week. Once you see Miami Art Week, it'll all make sense." And then when I saw the car, I'm like, "Oh, they're just buying time. They're buying time. They're scurrying around internally. You could tell."
They have a mule of it driving around in Europe, and it's like, it's all disguised, but it looks like a giant box. So yeah, it makes us wonder, is it different underneath there, or is this just a one-off to, I don't know, keep the lights on? We'll see.
Let's see what happens.
Maybe if we're
historic.
lucky, it looks like that. It looks bizarre and interesting. And they pull like what's the Honda and Acura? We always joke, Honda and Acura, they come up with a concept car, and then the real car comes out like 6 days later, and it's basically just like, we just put the mirrors back on and shrunk the wheels by an inch. Like that's the only thing they do. Honda's just like, their concept cars have no wild vision.
They have yeah, absolutely. And in general, concept cars, like by the time they make it out, they're so different from what the concept was. They're so much more realistic and down to earth.
Yeah, I talked to, interestingly, once an automaker, and he said that he admitted that actually, well, I can't remember what company it was, they actually would make the car first and make the concept afterwards, just to show something. So they would actually design the proper car they want to build, like whatever it is, a 2018 Honda Accord, and then be like, okay, now take exactly what we're going to sell, because we already know what it is years before it's going on sale. Then kind of go nuts with it in the creative department, and then we'll show that to everybody to get them excited, and then just bait and switch at the last minute. So I was like, somebody admitted that. So
that lets them exactly manage people's expectations, because like, this is what it is. Now let's exaggerate it 20% on every front, and then we know what we're bringing it back to.
Yeah. Well, Colum, it's not all Honda does an Acura. Remember the NSX? That was like a 7-year concept car tease until it finally came out.
But they also changed the engine and everything.
Yeah.
But the NSX in production looked pretty concepty, so I was surprised that it looked pretty concepty by the time it came out. I was like, wow.
It's like the Lexus LC. Like that looks like it's still a concept show car when you see them driving around.
It's selling like that too, I think.
It's true.
And the NSX is struggling, from what I understand.
Yeah, the NSX never caught on.
It's already dead.
So, a little inside baseball from the Honda guys, but they told me that basically they flubbed the launch of it. They because they had this huge delay, because basically they came out with it, and then the whole sort of hybrid era came, and by the time that they were going to go and launch the model, they basically realized, oh crap, it doesn't make nearly enough horsepower. So they basically sent it back to the drawing board and said, okay, remember that hybrid V6? Well, it's going to have 3 hybrid motors and 2 turbos as well. So they have to like extend it and make it bigger and do all this stuff. So apparently in that long delay, the Honda people who had taken like lists of, hey, I want to buy one, they never communicated with the owners. And the potential owners. So then when they actually brought the car out, they would call you up and they'd be like, oh, boss, I remember you said you wanted the NSX. Just you gave us a down payment, just sign here. More? And the guys who bought it were just like, what? Oh, I bought an R8. Like, see you later.
4 years ago.
They're well heeled enough that they didn't realize that they put a $5,000 deposit down and they just forgot about the $5,000. So.
That's who's on a waiting list for the new NSX, right? I remember when I was in high school, I was selling cameras at Best Buy, and an older guy came in who bought the R35 GTR when Nissan started making the GTR again. Yeah. And he told me he was on a waiting list for like 7 years. He said he put some money down like in 2003 or something, and it was like 2009 at that point when they just reintroduced it. I think the same kind of thing happened with the GTR.
Yeah, but they waited forever. That was a long time coming, and then they made good on their promise because they kept it in market for like 14 years or something. They just,
Yeah, without changing a thing.
yeah. There's yet another video for you.
I wonder how
Make
many customers were like, "Here, you remember you wanted this?" And they're like, "Wait, it's like 1,000 pounds heavier and has a motor up front. What's going on with this? This isn't what I signed up for."
Yeah, I mean,
So-
people are never satisfied.
So, boss, do you actually like the car comedy? We've seen the skits. Do you do that in your stand-up, or is it like more other stuff? Like, I'm curious.
I started to when the car stuff started to hit, I would like I love cars, so it's not that hard for me to come up with car stuff, but I didn't realize I needed immediately to come up with car stuff because I have my hour that I've just been doing, and then I started making content, get people to show. But then people would come up. One guy came up to me after the show. He goes, "Hey, I love your stuff, man, but do more car stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay. What do you drive?" He goes, "Oh, I don't have a car." I was like, "Get out of here." Go, I'm living my dream, not yours. But I realized in that moment, people came. So now I do like a bunch of car stuff right off the top. Because it's not like my hour is not like Sunfire, make some noise. You know, it's not just like because there's all these women in the audience. Like, what the hell is going on right
Yeah, yeah.
right? So it's like it's kind of like sheep herding. I get so many car guys and car enthusiasts come to the shows now that my first 10 minutes of the show is what are people driving cars, make fun of Jag, make fun of this, that's that. Everyone's kind of on the same page, and then we just continue with the show.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, you don't know, like you said, alienate every single woman in the audience to be like, just
Yeah, I mean,
check out.
there's the car chicks, they come too, but like a lot of times, even there's like 50% come from car stuff, 50% are for there for whatever. But and then the 50, if you go too deep, the 50 are like, what the hell is happening? Is this is this like a convention? What's happening right now?
Get all the Saturn owners. Raise
Yeah,
their hands.
exactly. Make some noise.
Yeah. Oh no.
One person.
Who's in a lease they regret? Make some noise.
They're gonna get a lot of. They're gonna handle
Who wish they got 24,000 kilometers on their lease for the year instead of 20? Make some noise.
Who has to decide between their mortgage and their lease?
Yeah,
The realities
right? Oh,
of
man.
Toronto.
Yeah.
When I graduated university, I moved to Detroit and I had a 2001 Nissan Sentra, and I went to BMW and I ordered a 2014 435 xDrive, and I parked my car around the block just because I was afraid they were going to screw me if they saw me what they drove in, and they screwed me either way. So it didn't matter what I drove in with. They screwed me, but I was paying so much for that car and insurance that I was paying with insurance $1,000 a month for this lease. It was a 3-year lease, and I had to go downsize my apartment. I was renting 1 bedroom in Madison Heights, Michigan for $300 a month so I could afford my $1,000. I was in a tiny house that had this Astoral blue 435 extra with Pilot Super Sports on it for no reason, no track time, heavy car, untuned, Pilot Super Sports on it, like just making terrible decisions. But still, like when you go to university doing a course you don't like, you're like, as soon as I get money, man, I'm gonna make it all worth it, right?
Well, I put thousands into modifying an Alero, so you don't have to talk to me about making bad car decisions.
Yeah. All car mods are bad decisions because it gets progressively less reliable as you like the more performance focused you make it becomes less and less reliable to the point where it's just like it's great when you want to go drive it, but if you need to like just go get groceries, you're like, I hate this car, I do not want, like, this is just, I'm scraping on everything going in and out of the the grocery store.
Oh, I have a friend who has like had a TTRS Audi, took all the seats out of it, put all these bracing struts on the inside. He had a wife, she had to take a separate car. He got to the point where it was like stage 3, crazy giant turbo, manifolds changing, carbon fiber hood, like crazy. This guy got to the point where he was dieting to lose as much weight as possible so we can get the fastest quarter-mile time. He was losing his mind, essentially. That is when you go to the final level. It can get dark in this world,
Yeah, you're like the race car drivers trying to shed all the weight before a race.
Like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, he's an accountant at some company. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it happens. So we should probably let you get going soon. Where can people find you besides online in the next couple weeks, months?
Next couple weeks, just enjoy your holidays. I'm out here in Toronto just doing local gigs, and I will be hopefully in January moving to New York City and
Ooh.
stepping it up. And then just abbaswahab.com, ABBASWAHAB. That's my Instagram, my TikTok, and my website. So no dates right now for the new year, but we're putting them together now. LA, San Diego, Seattle, the whole
Nice.
shebang. And yeah, just come out, see me live. We do car stuff, and then we do life stuff.
Sounds
To
great.
drag
Thanks
myself
for
in
coming
from the
on.
West End.
Sorry, was that Mike?
I said I have to drag myself into downtown from the West End. I'm out in Oakville, so not
Yeah.
too far away.
That's not too
Go
bad.
train
That's not
away.
too bad. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks. We'll be sure. I'll check you out as soon as I can.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much.
And everyone
Abbas.
listening, check them out too.
Appreciate you.
Welcome back to the Auto Guide Show. We have Colum Wood here again, and this is our official postseason wrap-up, I guess, for the F1 series, even though it's been over for over a week when people hear this.
Yeah, it's weird to the longest F1 season ever finally over. I think you could hear it on the voices of a few of the drivers when they were done. They were definitely done, especially those at not so great teams. The Alonsos of the world were just, I think their frustration was just boiling over, and these guys are ready to take a break. I mean, I know they're pampered millionaires. And they're probably the best. It's all the the engineers, everything else must have just grueling long season. So
Yeah, all over the world. And Alonso's probably rethinking that extension he signed at Aston.
he probably is. He's like, can't Lawrence Stroll just make him CEO of Aston Martin and he can do cool stuff or test drive cars or something. And
Yeah, he make cars and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of ended how we expected. I was still hoping for a, I don't know, Ferrari to try and do something wild and crazy to try and win the championship. But I feel like between Leclerc's great penalty and not so great in qualifying, there was no card to play, right? It just didn't happen. Despite it looked like it maybe could with the Verstappen Piastri contact on the first corner. So
yeah, I mean, his point he got at the end didn't really matter. But yeah, like that first corner, you went from him way up in the points and Charles way out. He passed like 8 people on the first lap. I was wondering too if they're going to do something, but I don't think anyone expected Lando to just dominate like that. Like they were trying different things and they'd be like, he's still pulling away from you. So I think they figured if they tried to really undercut him, he'd blow by them and then they'd maybe lose the opportunity of double podium. So
yeah,
not that they needed it, but it's just nice to have it. So.
Yeah, I thought if you're going to go like full ruthless, just they should have just sent when Leclerc was way back, they should have just like pit him, bring him a lap down, and then just like drive into the side of Norris, take him out of the race, win the championship in the most like if you thought 2021 was wild, let's just win at all costs.
Go full Schumacher.
There are many a driver who have done that. Maybe we should do a whole episode on it. I've been watching the Senna, the new series on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen that at all.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through.
It's okay. The actual documentary that came out like 10 years ago, whatever, that's fantastic. But this is kind of I don't know.
Well, it's made by Brazil, right? So it's like their national hero. I mean, think of the reenactment movie Canada would make about Wayne Gretzky. Like,
yes,
like he like went and like solved cancer and did a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, there is a lot of like I always think man, Marlboro's getting a lot of cigarette advertising out of this thing. Like it goes a long way. There's no shots other than also maybe Honda is getting like nonstop branding. So
hey, John Player got like 3 scenes.
Yeah, they did. So that's all right. So I don't know if there's anything else of like we can. I think a future episode we should touch base on some like highs and lows of the season and stuff. But I've got a couple rumors for now if you're interested.
All right.
So maybe rumors. Just all the dirty gossip of apparently. So there's one story that Bottas, who now appears to be out of season, and I don't know if you saw on Instagram, is getting in trouble with the police in California. He was posted on his Instagram. He got pulled over by the cops somewhere. So there was a shot of that. So he apparently had verbally been told that he was a part of the larger, Sauber moving to Audi, contract, etc. But no written contract, and that certainly put him in the butt because I guess once I can't remember who was running it before, but when Matteo Binotto took over, that all changed and he was out on his butt. So so much for verbal contracts, right? They don't hold a lot of water, especially in F1. So
Yeah, they never did, never will.
yeah, and then so then maybe the other piece of news is looking at the upcoming Cadillac racing team, which I think there'll be a lot of focus on. Is that maybe Daniel Ricciardo's career in Formula One isn't over? So I guess there was an interview recently with Auto Bild in Germany did with Graham Loden, who's the new head of the Cadillac F1 team, who was a weird name to come out of nowhere. They said he last worked with Marussia in like 2015, 2016. So it's been a decade since he was involved in Formula One. And I don't know what he's been doing in the meantime, but apparently the quote from Auto Bild was that the Australian is the big favorite for a cockpit at the American racing team, because apparently Graham Loden likes him. So that's surprising, I would say. Maybe it shouldn't be, but it still seems surprising. The other sort of piece in there is that Loden, one of the things he's been doing the past couple of years, he actually manages Zhu Guanyu. So he's, I was like, oh, maybe he'll wind up there. Maybe there's some like Chinese money coming in, or General Motors wants to like shore itself up in China. So they're going to bring in a Chinese driver. But I don't think he's the Chinese driver to do any great favors for you right now. I wouldn't put my money behind him. So.
Yeah, me either. Not if you want to win.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they put those two guys in 26 and 27, and they don't do so well. They'll use a Ferrari engine, and then in 28, when the Cadillac engine's apparently ready, all of a sudden they have two ringers, and it's like, oh look, it's our engine's so much better.
Genius. I like it. Yeah.
There's
no conspiracy theory I don't like in Formula One. So
yeah, I mean, you never know, right? These stranger things have happened, and we could talk about that in a future episode. The biggest conspiracy theories that ended up being true or not true.
Yeah, true. There's actually, I think I've mentioned this before. There's a crazy YouTube video. I will find it somewhere, and of all about this, like the rundown of everything with like Ron Dennis, and there's some like Ferrari guy who, like, I think he was with Ferrari. He was a part of one of those conspiracies where Ron Dennis actually got like sort of booted from Formula One somewhat, and he basically just pulled his car over he was involved, and his life was ruined because he got caught up in this scandal in F1, and he literally pulled his car over on like the M1 or whatever in London or in England, and then just stepped out in front of a semi truck and killed himself. And it was like his life was so ruined that he did this, and it's a crazy. I'm like, why aren't they making a story about that? That seems like the most interesting story of Formula One you could tell, until of course the Brad Pitt movie comes out, which kind of looked funny, seeing all the Brad Pitt celebrations and stuff at the race when they were doing fake podiums. So
the young up and comer.
Yeah, the 11th team. I keep seeing jokes on Formula One that what's called APX GP or whatever it is. They've just announced bankruptcy and that they won't be there next year, and it's like, yeah, ha ha ha. Yeah, we know. So
yeah. Yeah, like you, I'm not sure that the movie's going to come out. We'll see.
You're not sure it's going to come out?
Oh, like how it will come out. Like, will it be like cool and authentic, or will it be like, what was that Sylvester Stallone indie movie?
I think it was called Rush. Was that it? Was it? But it was terrible.
Yeah.
They were like driving on the streets in the Indy cars. It was a truly terrible movie, and I'm worried too. I don't know that it'll be. It'll live up to expectations. So
will it be Days of Thunder, or will it be whatever that movie was?
Yeah, right. Oh, Days of Thunder. Yeah, great stuff, right? There's all kinds of Rush was the more recent one, the Niki Lauda James Hunt, wasn't that one? Yeah, that was
I
great.
think it was called Drive or Driven or something.
Yeah, one of those two. Yeah, Rush was fabulous. It was like that was an iconic movie, and it's one of those things you can just go back and watch like anytime you want to. Just put it on and be like, yep, I'll watch this. Like I watched it 3 days in a row. It doesn't matter. It's always a good movie. So
it's always a good time.
Yeah. So we'll see what the rumor mill brings next week. I think, as the year goes on, the silly season picks up. I know we basically have all the drivers, everything is decided now, but you never know what chaos will happen in the offseason. Allegedly, Sergio Perez still has a job. We haven't heard any official word there, but
the internet's going crazy trying to get Yuki to be Max's teammate because he got to do a test in the Red Bull after, like, he was one of the guys who got to test it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but it'd be cool. I mean, you'd have two very different personalities out there trying to be teammates. But
yeah,
I mean, and like I said, anything can happen. Someone could break their foot doing motocross in the off season and, you know, miss the beginning of the next year. You never know.
Who was that?
I can't remember now.
Who was that? I feel like it might have been Ralph Schumacher. Somebody like that. Oh, or is it? It wasn't Montoya. It was Montoya, I think. He did some crazy stuff like that, and he lied about it the whole time too because he wasn't allowed to. And it was that he like fell in the tub or something like that. So are you searching it right now?
Yeah, it sounds much better that you fell in the tub than you're out motocrossing. It's like you're driving our car and you can't stand up in a tub. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a hard thing to do. Maybe depends what you're up to. Is it one?
Yeah, I can't find it.
No, okay. I'm pretty sure it's Montoya. So he's always he was a character. So
all right. Anyway, I guess that's it. Like, the silly season will slow down, I think, for about a month, maybe a bit more, because holidays and they start getting the cars. But then the rumors will start popping up probably very late January as we get closer to that extravaganza festival spectacle that they're having, where instead of everyone getting to pick their day to reveal their car, everyone's doing it together.
But that's never very exciting anyway. The cars always like new liveries are much more exciting than new cars. I think you have to be like an insane nerd to like appreciate the intricacies of each little like design detail. I'm like, I don't know, unless there's, again, if somebody comes out with like a wild new design, which I think is unlikely in the current regulations, you have to wait till a whole new setup when, you know, everyone's like, oh, we have wings up here versus wings down there, and things start looking differently. So I don't have a lot of hope for. I like to see a new livery. Always looks good. And there have been some good ones of late. So
I think 26 you'll get that crazy livery change, or not livery car, and they could all look quite a little different because it's how everyone's interpreting the rules. But the only thing about next year, I like they're doing it together because if the commentators, like, they know the sport, they could probably tell you some things that stand out that we wouldn't catch about floors and wings. But there'll be all the lead up, like, oh, this team saw that team's car and this and that. And remember how everyone used to copy Mercedes car and they started copying Red Bulls? I wonder if someone will try to copy McLarens in the off season now.
They might go copy. Aston Martin will do it again. They'll just copy paste. They've done it a few years now, right? So
well, Haas did it that one year. Remember, they called it the white Mercedes.
Yeah. Or there was
like last year's car exactly.
Yep, and it works. And I think that's what we've seen even with Aston Martin. We saw it worked for like half the year. It basically brought you, like, you can copy paste and you will get a competitive car for the first half of the season. And then once everyone starts innovating on it, you start going backwards because you don't, you know, you don't know what you're on the shoulders of giants, as they say, right? So you don't know what the background is. So you don't really know how to improve upon it. And when you do make changes, you're just really guessing. So,
and this would be the year to copy the most because, like you said, it's not going to be huge changes. They've figured out the formula on these cars now. So, you know, like a Kick Sauber, they should go copy someone so they look more competitive before they become Audi.
There you go. There's a prediction for 2025. Kick Sauber is the new McLaren. The end.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll be back next week, probably with some of the stuff we talked about earlier, because I don't know if much is going to happen next week, and then it's the holidays, so nothing should happen. And
no, we'll bring some good topics for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and then hopefully the rumors start flowing in January.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Take care.
All right, so it's been another show that we tried to rein in on time, but never works. So quickly, what is ahead? This week, I was driving the Mini Countryman S, and I have lots of thoughts that I will share on a future episode. The only thing I'm going to say now is it is probably the first car in history that a manufacturer ditched a conventional automatic transmission for a compromised, sportier dual clutch, but also took away any possible way to control the dual clutch manually. So there's that. Otherwise, I really like the car. What about you, Kyle?
Well, so I do have a press car this week, but that was a silly mistake on my behalf because I was on 2 trips. So I have a BMW 550e, which I believe I talked about very briefly last week, saying I was looking forward to it because it might be the ultimate all-round car. And I will talk about it more when I have my full review ready. But yeah, it's basically that. It's a plug-in hybrid, which we both agree is a great all-rounder just in and of itself. It's a big luxury sedan, and so I like it. And then the 2 trips were the Taos that we talked about earlier on the episode, and then a doubleheader trip with Nissan to close out the year with the 25 Armada and the 25 Murano. Yes, both of them are actually new, not just facelifts, full on new. And so when this publishes, the embargo review, or the Armada embargo, will have passed, and so people can check out the review on AutoGuide.com. But we'll talk about them in the next episode, because the Murano will also be dropping later this week. I have lots of thoughts. So yeah, that's it for me this week.
It'll be Nissan week, because we also should have an Infiniti QX80 comparison against the Lexus LX next week. So
Yes.
next week I'm driving nothing because I have to catch up on work. But then I get my Christmas card the week after. So looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, that's right. And yeah, I'm in my BMW month, as we've already talked about. And so I swapped the 5 Series for the 2025 330i. Wait, no, there's no more I. It's just 330, I think. Yeah, so it's the entry engine in the 3 Series, which also got a light facelift for the new year.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to hearing about that next week, because I'll have no car to talk about. So until then, we'll see you next week, and that'll be our last episode before Christmas. Then I'll have one more before the new year. And wow, we will have been doing this for a year.
A year of the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.